All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for another episode of Amir's Anecdotes. Today, my guest comes from my most favorite country in the whole world, Ireland. So, Roy, please introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show. I'm Roy Coughlan. I'm from Cork in Ireland, and I live now in Łódź in Poland. Studied construction economics, worked for a mechanical contractor for two companies for about 13 years. Then I started doing a lot of real estate, and that's why I moved to Poland. And now what I do is I've got 6 podcasts, podcast coach, helping people with virtual assistants, and any business. I've had a lot of businesses. I've had about 20 businesses over the years. So
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you keep track of it all?
I'm just very focused. If we look at the podcast, I have an Excel sheet, and I'm just tracking everything. So where I put it out and everything, and I'm tracking the numbers. So I know why is this down, and my aim is I kind of use a 3-color system. 0.5% if it goes up by 0.5%, green 1%, and I do purple if it's 2%, and I try to get as many purples as I can.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, the orange and the green don't make purple, so that's an interesting color scheme, but all right. So, now, Roy, how old are you now?
I'm 52.
52, good for you. And when did you start your career or your first business or your first, form of employment, I'll say?
Well, I suppose employment, but I mean, I started working, like I was washing cars at 9. At 11, at 11, I was doing newspapers with the money from that. At 14, I bought a lawnmower and I used to go around cutting grass. And some days I'd make $100 on just cutting grass.
Wow!
When I was 18, I was buying and selling motorbikes, so I was making good money with that. And then I started working. Yeah, when I went to college, I finished at 20. And working for a mechanical contractor. And during that then as well, I set up kind of website company with another guy doing websites for people. And always looking at what's going on. A lot of real estate stuff.
Yeah. Wow, just always hustling. You've been just going for over 40 years.
Yeah. And it's always enjoying the journey, not kind of hating the journey. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you go through the past, 40 some odd years of your life. If you had to count, how many careers would you call it?
Maybe 5. I don't know. A lot were real estate, but I mean, I've done a web development company. I've done a lot of different things, but what I've learned is everything is with people. So sometimes people, they study something and then they realize they were either pushed from a parent to do it and then realize, I hate this. But the trick is, if you can get on with people, every business is a people business. And once you do that, and even if you learn marketing in what you do, you can apply marketing with everything. So if you're going to be studying and reading books, I always encourage people, look at copywriting, look at marketing, because if something doesn't work out or you decide to move on, you still have that skill set for the next company, or whether you're an employee or you're working for yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I'm a financial advisor by trade now, and I'm talking to you with this podcast, and I learned a lot of those skills on how to communicate people by bartending. So you can take those skills and what you would consider a completely unrelated industry, but apply it and use that to create success. And it sounds like that's what you did. Yeah, that's great. So this arc of your life is obviously full of various chapters, right? And to an outsider looking at the different career paths you've had, they would probably look at very distinct, different careers of different skills. But I think what you're trying to say is that all of these are just one skill of dealing with people and having that entrepreneurial mindset. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And I mean, even if I was getting into an industry that I didn't know that much about, and perhaps a business partner might know more, I'll go away and I'll get 10 books, or as well as listening to podcasts and stuff like that. And I start brushing up my skills and understanding it more and more and trying to learn from the best. And then also going for dinner with people that are in that space, because people are generous with their time. And I mean, you can, I remember when I was doing property, there was one of the top developers in Ireland, and I asked him, would he be my mentor? And when I used to go back to Ireland, I sit down and meet with him, and I'd want to buy dinner, and he'd go, no, you bought it the last time. Even though, he insisted. And for me, he was giving me his time, and I was delighted he was giving me so much advice. But there's a lot of people, they're happy to do that. But always pick up the tab if you can, rather than thinking,
right.
but this guy wouldn't allow it. He just said, no, we got to do it.
Yeah, and you know what? If you don't ask, it's automatically getting a no.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now thinking back through what you kind of consider one career path, right, of just dealing with people, uh, where would you kind of pinpoint as your most difficult and most stressful financial position that you've ever been in?
So what I did is I was doing real estate. I was put together a lot of syndicates. So I was like multi-million pound developments, like at a commercial property. I built 30 apartments, built houses. And when the crash happened, it took a bit later to come across the pond. I was doing very well
Mm.
because I was doing management of properties. I was doing renovations. I probably renovated over 200 properties.
Yeah.
So, and I had a team of about 14 people working with me. And the investors, I was like the small boy. So,
Yeah.
these people had 10 million plus, and they started to get in trouble. And I just assumed it was going to come right. So I started putting additional money into, say, the commercial.
Oh.
And I said, look, I'll charge you 10% interest. And at the end of the year, look, if I can increase the share. And they were happy with that because I wasn't kicking them when they were done. But I just assumed they'd get it come right, and it didn't. And eventually, the whole deck of
Oh.
cards came down. And I had made my first million around 30, and I was looking with these developments to about they were finished to be worth about 5 million euro.
Yeah.
I mean, euro and dollar are fairly close at the moment, so
Sure.
we talk dollars. And when they fell down, usually when you with a limited liability company, it's kind of like wash your hands, lost my investment,
Yeah.
move on. But in Poland, and nobody had told me, I was the president of a lot of companies, and I was personally liable. So
Oh.
yeah, so I was personally liable for the debt, and the rest of them, they had their own problems. They all just kind of walked away, and I was left holding the baby. And
Oh no.
I've had over 100 court cases. So went through a lot to kind of resolve that.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize that in Poland is that I guess in throughout the EU I would assume it's similar.
No,
Having a
like
limited
Ireland
liability.
isn't like that. Most companies.
No.
No, yeah, but
Really? Yeah.
Poland,
Okay. So it's like America. In America, you have a limited liability company. By definition, it's limiting your liability. That's why I call it that.
yeah,
But in Poland, they don't limit your liability because you're the president of the company.
yeah.
Wow.
And
So then
what's
as those
strange
bus-
is my solicitors or the accountants, they didn't tell me that. Like, I mean, I
Really?
should have been advised of that because you could always have somebody that's
Yeah.
kind of taking that position, even though they wouldn't have the shareholding. But I wasn't advised, so it was a shock to me to kind of find this
Wow.
out.
Right. So then so these real estate projects folded, and you had to be personally liable for the losses.
Yeah.
And so that was what, $5 million?
Yeah, the total debt was about that. And I had 3 properties in Ireland, and basically I released equity on them, and
Mm.
they were all taken off me, including my residential house with all my belongings. Like, I
Wow.
got wiped out. Like, yeah, they took
The
whole.
court, they had like the sheriff come in and take your personal property.
Yeah, and I was in the High Court in Dublin, and I just saw so much corruption. I mean, they were.
Wow.
I was convinced I was going to win because I had so much information. Because I had documentation where they had all signatures from the bank, and the bank had bought
Yeah.
out another bank. I had 20 different signatures with 20 different names with the exact same signature.
Mm.
Yeah, and they were doing loads of stuff. And when I was in the court, one of the people, because you're just sitting there, it's not normally plaintiff defendant. It was like one judge with 150 barristers, which are high end, just sitting
Yeah.
down waiting for your case to be called. And one person said, we checked with KPMG, we were overcharged €15,000. When was that? 2 years ago. Oh, you should have took it up with them then. Ruled in favour of the banks plus interest. Plus
Wow.
penalties. Yeah, it was like every single thing that I witnessed was so much corruption. And I didn't even know, honestly, they sent an affidavit and I had to go away and fight this. I didn't even know what an affidavit was. I had to find out what's an affidavit. First time they had all their documentation wrong and they just withdrew it. Next time I said to the judge, I said, I've already fought. They can do it as often as they want, he said. So they have
Holy cow.
they have an unlimited budget. So I was getting every time it was a different judge. So I'd go in and I had my sworn statement. I had 43 items. They couldn't respond because one of them they gave for a billionaire, they gave a write off of 300 million, and I had a property that was like this is how the market went. I had a property that was worth €400,000, and after the crash it was €125,000, and I had a mortgage of 220. But as a
Yeah.
kind, I was still kind of, I had it rented and managing things. So
Yeah.
I had an
But it was
offer.
underwater.
It was underwater, but I had an offer at 200, and I said to them, full and final settlement, 200,000, and they wouldn't accept it, and they sold it for less and came after me for the excess. So that's what the case was. So I was
Wow.
saying, you've given a billionaire a write-off, but you won't give me 20,000 off. And it was like at that stage, then like it was like 65,000. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was just fighting. And at one stage, one of the judges was kind of on my side, and he said, you haven't responded to his affidavit. Offered me €1,400 for my travel expenses, because I was coming from Poland, and then I'd go to Cork.
Yeah.
I'd have to go up to Dublin for this court case. And
Ugh.
I never got that. And in the end, the final case, I was there about 9, and he started doing the case, the judge, in a room full of things. And he goes, oh, this is going to take longer, we'll do it at lunchtime. And you can't leave, because if you leave when they call you out, if you're not there, you lose.
Yeah.
So then he spends about 10 minutes, and he goes, no, it's taking longer than I thought. So I was there for the whole day, and you're drained at this stage.
Yeah.
So the barrister starts reading out the stuff, and when I go to talk then, he was shutting me up. A person that was standing there, a witness, said, this is what's going on here. And he basically said, that are you related to him? Shut up or get out. And I lost. And I won on interest and on the costs of the barrister, because they took so long to fight
Sure.
me. And I was like, I'm going to go to the EU for this. And you have
Yeah.
to reapply. You have to fight it again before you can go to the EU. And in Ireland, some countries, it doesn't change the amount that you're going. You're fighting against, say, the 65,000. But if I open it, it reopens the initial thing. So it would be that plus all the costs and everything, plus the next cost. So you were talking 65,000 versus 500,000. And it was like when I saw every single case
Yeah.
corrupt, I said, I'm not going doing this. So, but,
Yeah.
I mean, it was total corruption. And I've had a few people on my show. One of the guys, he did something like 35,000 calculations with a team, all overcharged interest payments. So the banks were
Wow.
totally fraudulent. And like for those that don't know, we had the bank bailout. So they were at one stage they were calling them the pigs, like Portugal, Ireland, Greece, and Spain with
Yeah.
the bailout. Not one person got it. They took everyone's properties, and it all went to the bondholders and the banks.
Wow.
And like now they're giving properties to, the Ukrainians and all these refugees coming in, which are all men, which is strange. But the Irish
Yeah.
were thrown out. I mean, I was reading your man's book, and we discussed it. One woman, Irish, 3 kids living in a car. They were like, when I went to the court case at that stage, that's when the carnage. I saw so many people homeless that I never saw in my life. They were just lining the streets. So they threw the Irish out
Oof.
to the ground, and then now they've loads of property for everybody except for the Irish again.
I don't know what it is about the world, man. They keep kicking the Irish when they're down.
Yeah.
Jeez. So all this is going on. You're trying to fight these battles. I mean, the real estate crash of 2008, that affected the whole world. And it was largely bank fraud. And now you become liable just because you're in Poland for $5 million. They take your house, they take your belongings, they take your properties in Ireland, and you now are at $5 million in debt with basically nothing. Is that right?
Yeah.
So and how old were you when this happened?
I was in my 40s. I
In
think
your 40s.
Yeah.
So
I think
you've
it was
been
around
working since you were-
2011, 2012 that this happened, so I'm 52.
So you're working since you're 9 years old.
Yeah.
You build wealth. You're mowing lawns and washing cars and sell motorcycles. And then you do websites. And then you get into real estate. You amass millions of dollars of real estate through the sweat of your own back. It's gone because of bank fraud. And then now you're liable for a $5 million debt. Now, that debt, do you still owe that today? I mean, how did it get paid off, or did they wash it clean because they took all your stuff?
No. Basically, I had a commercial and somebody came in and bought it with the debt. So I lost all my investments, so that took at least $1 million off. There was another one with houses, and I'll tell you how bad the corruption was with that commercial property. It was about 1.25 million, and the valuer valued it at 500,000 because they were working with the banks. And the way that they
Ugh.
do it is they do a screenshot, so they make it look like it was advertised. So it's at 75% for the first auction and 50% for the second. Nobody turns up for the first auction. And then they have their own cronies. But the guy that eventually he became a friend to me, and it just happened he was bidding on another one of the other sites, and he asked me for the drawings, and usually you would ignore that, but I don't know, I just decided, okay, I'll meet you, look, these are the plans and all that. And he gave me so much advice, and it was through his advice, not the solicitors or the accountants, that actually saved me. And that was one with corruption. The other was houses. We had 4 houses, and I was advised, don't go there because they'll ask, is there somebody here from the company? And they bribed the people in the room, and they basically had their own cronies buy the property at like half the price of its value.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I was looking forward to when the excess for that, but that just disappeared. So it's like they knew.
Huh.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so
Got it.
eventually, yeah, I got all the decks kind of cleared. But
So all the
it
decks
was a
got cleaned,
tough
but they
time.
took everything unrelated to the actual. So you had all these properties that were foreclosed on because of the housing crisis, and you had a $5 million debt. But that $5 million debt was basically solved by them taking unrelated assets from you.
Well, they were all kind of like everything was connected, because it's like they're going after each project as such,
Got it.
and it's all combined. That's adding,
Got
and then not being able to pay other debts and different things, and that's the whole
Sure.
lot came to 5 million. Yeah.
So how did you ultimately get out of that rock bottom, I'll call it?
I think meditation helped me, honestly. And I wasn't into meditation. I came across the 6-phase meditation, and it was just kind of, because when we're in that state, and I know this is an international thing, so many people go through it, we think of the lack, we think of the anger and everything, but it was like gratitude. What are you grateful for? So when you start thinking of things that you're grateful for, you start attracting them. So that was one thing. And the other was the act of forgiveness. Like I had, even with developments that I was doing, like there was crooked builders that were, even though I had engineers overseeing it, they didn't put in the sewage system, and it cost a fortune. I had court cases with that, and I'd eventually win, but the whole thing is on pause. So then they put in a fake invoice. I had 18 pre-sales, so I was actually going to be okay with one of these projects, and they put in a fake invoice, and it took 2 years, and I had to pay like about $1 million extra in interest, and then the people that were buying wouldn't buy because there was like a debtor on the thing. The mortgage had their name on it, and they all, half them bailed, and some of them sued me and won. And then when I won the case after 2 years, I got the bailiffs to go after them, and they came back and said no money. So it actually cost me to get the bailiffs to go after them to say no money, and it just yeah. But the judge, I mean, that was more corruption. The judge had allowed them to have an invoice put on the building, even though I'd won a case with them previously, proving that they were corrupt.
Yeah. So your way out was through meditation, and I think on some level it was because you were able to eventually, after years of court cases, get to from a place of minus 5 million to 0 and build from 0, right? And now that was roughly 10 years ago, right? So where are you today?
I mean, it took a few years to get to, so no,
Sure.
I've no debt. I've never used a credit card since, to be honest with you, because at one stage I think I had something like 42,000 on the credit card, and I got it with the information that I had. They gave me, I got 30% is what they accepted for full and final settlement. So
Wow.
yeah. So that was handy, but at the same time,
Sure.
what I know now, they wouldn't have got anything, because I've kind of learned a lot just through from the corruption of all the things I've done. I've kind of learned sovereignty, and kind of, some people say common law, UCC, just understanding what you can do, the power of the signature and things like that. But for me, I just like never ever want to borrow again, because if I can't afford it, I'm not getting it. And it's like, with a car, whatever, you just make sure you have the money and then just buy it.
Yeah. Got it. And now, so then where are you now financially?
Now I'm okay. I'm building now. Starting to build, I started a virtual assistance company with the podcasting as well. I mean, I've been working the podcast for like 7 years, but at the start it was all about giving back, helping people, like I speak in podcasts, helping people speak, meditation podcasts, because the stuff that I was learning from the meditation, they either became paid or disappeared, and I was like, I know people need this, so it was always like, make sure this is free, and it's always there. And now I'm kind of getting monetizing the podcast as well, and so I'm building, so no debt, and I've got some assets. So I'm okay, but I'm not where I was previously.
Sure.
But I know that I can actually exceed where I was. And
let's just so that I can kind of paint the arc of this story, right? And because it's Amir's anecdotes, and I am a financial advisor, I like to talk about the numbers. So the year before, everything kind of hit you with that financial crisis. Very rough numbers is fine. What was your approximate income and your approximate net worth?
I'm not sure with income wise. It was like I was able to go where I wanted.
Sure, yeah.
I had a new car. It was kind of, I don't know what, sometimes I do a deal, like I have like 50 grand on a sale of a site and stuff like that. So I was
sure, yeah. So it was
on paper. I was probably like, I had a lot of properties that I was like, one was like 25. Eventually I had to split it to sell them because we couldn't sell the bigger ones. But I had 5 of them. Another development I was 50-50 in that we had about 30. So I had a lot of property. Assets wise I was like 5 million plus. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So you were at 5 million plus in assets. Then the crash happened.
In paper. Yeah.
In paper, right?
Yeah.
And then you had negative 5 million. Then you got to 0. And now where are you today?
No, I'm not at the million. I'm
sure.
But I've got enough assets for say $250,000.
$250,000. That's still incredible growth. I think, having over less than a decade accruing $250,000 in assets is still incredible. And from the lens of me as the financial advisor, now granted I'm only in America and I can only provide financial advice in America. That 2008 financial crisis was really, really devastating to a lot of families. And you're right, the banks kind of got off scot-free, but on taxpayer money, And but if someone else is listening to this and they're in a similar environment where they're over leveraged, or they have significant debt and judgments against them, there are avenues that you can utilize, right? There are debt consolidation companies, there are debt management companies. Obviously, there are financial advisors like myself that can help, with those budgeting strategies and asset appreciation strategies. Being more proactive with your attorney and accountant and financial advisor selection is really important to make sure that your things are structured properly so that you don't end up opening an LLC in Poland where you have liability instead of just being able to walk away from it. And, the other thing is I don't know how it works in Poland, but in America too, not accountants, but lawyers and financial advisors have a fiduciary liability. So they are liable for the advice that they render. And so the failure to provide that advice on that limited liability company for you, that would have been an avenue for you to then kind of punt that frustration over to your attorney. But it sounds like you couldn't do that.
Honestly, with the amount of court cases that I have had, and even I should take the court to court, like the judge that done the ruling, because everything, and I had proof of everything.
Yeah.
Basically, you're fighting a corrupt system with they're all on one side.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had so many cases that whether you win or lose in court, you lose. It's like just all your energy is sucked out. So they even tried to take a criminal case against me. They tried to give me 3 years in jail for one of the developments that we had, and I won it.
Wow.
And I was inside in the court, and they had prosecutors, and the prosecutor kept changing. And one stage, the prosecutor's fast asleep across me, and I just wanted to get up and slap him into the head. I was like, you're trying to ruin my life. And it's nothing to them. They're just playing a game. And I won it. And then they appealed. And the solicitor that I used asked, why are you appealing? We always do. Even though they knew 100% they had lost. They always do. And I know a lot of people go through this. But the one advice I would give people is, if you're going into court, it's you. Don't be putting every case I have won was not the solicitor. It was me writing little messages. He just said this, say that. Because they're
Yeah.
not in the same boat as you. Most of them, unfortunately, they're just it's billable hours that they're getting. Yeah, you get the
Yeah.
odd. There's 5 to 10% that really care and they want the
Yeah.
best for you. But make sure that you're not delegating too much. You're totally present. And also, when they're asking you questions, there's times you can answer, but make sure you get in what you need to get in, and you can actually win the
Yeah.
case by doing it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's what an incredible story. And in the lens of Amir's anecdotes, right? I hope that there's someone listening to this. And I hope that no one is listening to this and being like, yeah, I got to go to court for $5 million. But if you are, your team selection and your involvement in that is really important. I think a lot of people, they don't deal with it. I mean, I have a client right now who, they got letters in the mail about assets and judgments about their parents' assets after the parent passed away. Ignored it for years and years and years, and it compounded, and it can really be a problem. So address what you have to address. Unfortunately, that's the rules of the game, and even if you don't want to play the game, you're in it, right? That's how it goes.
Just on that, because a lot of people mightn't be aware of that, and in Poland there's different rules, but when they write to you and you don't respond, that's basically you saying you accept what they've just wrote to you. And a load of people are guilty of that. And even in Poland, if you don't receive it, in other words, like if they send it and you go later and collect it, after 2 times, it's classed that you have it, even if you've never got it. So
Yep.
if you have some PO box or something like that, but always respond. But what I would say is learn your sovereignty, because they're always going after the corporate entity, even if they're going after the individual, and they'll back off once you know what to do. It's not
Yep.
one bird. It takes a bit of time to understand this, but just learn your own power, because we're born free, and they think they control us, and they don't. And regarding the property, what I would say to people is a lot of the time we live in, especially entrepreneurs, we're all positive. Like, don't leverage saying, I only need 90%. If the roof leaks and you need a new roof or a boiler or whatever, I'd keep it at 60, even less.
Yeah.
You should have at least a year. Banks will throw money at you when you have money. As soon as it dries up, they'll reduce your limit that you have. I've had cases like that. They were like giving you overdraft 50 grand, 100 grand. As soon as things went tight, that's gone. Just like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. Don't be over leveraged. Don't take on more debt than you can service yourself. That's a recipe for disaster. Absolutely. So, Roy, this is an amazing story. I hope there are lessons to be learned for the audience. I know I definitely learned a lot from you about how some of these international cases work, but also a reinvigorated level of importance and discipline on selecting your team and knowing who's going to be working with you and for you. But if anyone wants to learn more from you, or maybe even engage in some meditation, how do they reach out to you? What's the best way to contact you?
So everything, all my 6 podcasts, virtual assistants, any business I'm doing is at roycoughlan.com.
Wonderful. Anything else you want to say before we sign off today?
Just because, like we all know, a lot of people unfortunately throw in the towel. Like, if you see that I can overcome this, like, I remember one of my partners, business partners, and it was like, income solves every problem. So sometimes we're putting our attention and you've got all these negative calls. Like, it's not as bad now, but I remember credit card companies, they'd abuse it. Banks would ring you nearly every day and abuse it. I think that's stopped now because you can record them. But look at what you can make money, because income solves every problem. Instead of looking at, I'm drowning, just and take a step back. Like, it will come true. Just take your time, take a breath. And I would encourage it to try meditation. Some people think, I don't have time, it doesn't work, my head is doing 90. If your head is doing 90, that's when you need meditation.
100% agree. Meditation solved a lot of problems for me personally, so I agree with you there. And on that, that effort piece that you're speaking about, I think a lot of people, they get really focused in on the wrong things, right? I'm going to get a rental property. That's going to solve all my problems. And they get 90% mortgage. They take all of their life savings to make the 10% down payment. Then they can't do the repairs, right? Or they're running around moving money into 7 or 8 different bank accounts for 0.25% more of interest because it's a high yield savings account, but they only have $1,000 in the thing anyway. So you're doing all this labor for $5, right? But invest in yourself and spend the time educating yourself. If you spent that same amount of time doing a course online to get an additional certification, you can go get additional employment and make an extra 40 grand.
Exactly.
And income solves that problem.
Absolutely.
Great. Roy, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You have a blessed day.